The rain, it raineth every day upon the just and unjust fella, but more upon the just, because the unjust hath the just's umbrella. Not my own. Hasten to say, not my own. Fundamentalism means different things to different people, but I think there are two elements that are common. First is blind obedience to a holy book, regardless of evidence, and this is what Richard Harris meant by impervious to facts. And the second is extremism. There is no holy book of atheism, and never could be. Atheism is not a belief system. There's no catechism of atheism, no 39 articles, no Torah, no Quran. There is no book, only publicly verifiable evidence. And that's anything but fundamentalist, because it contains a commitment to change as new evidence comes in. One of the many lies told about us is that we are dogmatically certain that we know the truth, know everything that is to be known. I think this is what Richard Harris meant by don't allow the grand perhaps. On the contrary, we glory in what we don't yet know. And that's the meaning of the quotation that Charles Moore attributed to me. It's actually Matt Ridley, my friend Matt Ridley, probably his friend Matt Ridley as well, who said that he was bored by what we already know. It's not really that we're bored by what we already know, but we're so excited by what it leads on to, which is what we don't know. We want to roll up our sleeves and get down to knowing more. And that, of course, is the real significance for a scientist of the gaps in our knowledge. To a religious person, a gap in our knowledge is likely to signify something that God did. You don't need to ask questions anymore because God simply did it. We, however, admit with some excitement that there are gaps in our knowledge, gaps waiting to be filled. Gaps do not provide a license to fill them with any old stuff that we happen to make up. And most certainly they don't provide a license for any old stuff that happened to be made up by a tribe of ignorant desert nomads and just happened to get into some holy book or other. Science may not know what happened before the Big Bang. Science may not know yet how life began. But if science doesn't know the answer to those questions, then there's absolutely no reason to suppose that the answer is to be found in an ancient book or any religious text. To believe that would be true fundamentalism. In fact, if we're going to throw around accusations of dogmatic over-certainty, the boot is on the other foot with a vengeance. Even nice middle-of-the-road vicars and bishops are profligate with their certainties. They'll go into the pulpit and tell the congregation, God wants us to do X. God doesn't want us to do Y. How do you know? When did you ever hear a priest say, I think the balance of probability suggests that God wants X? When did you ever hear from a pulpit, we are waiting for further evidence? It's worth recalling that Doubting Thomas, the patron saint of scientists, was criticized for demanding evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. The other disciples were explicitly praised for accepting an alleged fact on faith in the absence of evidence. Let me turn now to the second meaning of fundamentalism, extremism. We are accused of being extremists. We new atheists are said to be no better than the Muslim extremists who hijack planes and fly them into buildings, or than the fundamentalist Christians who blow up abortion clinics. When was the last time you read of anybody who blew up anything in the name of atheism? Not blew something up and happened to be an atheist, blew something up in the name of atheism. The 19 hijackers of 9/11 did what they did in the name of their religion. They honestly and sincerely believed they were behaving in a good and righteous fashion. They believed they were doing what their God wanted them to do. They believed that they were going to a martyr's reward. They believed it because it followed logically from what they had been taught in their faith schools. Atheism doesn't have any faith schools. If we did, by the way, we wouldn't teach them atheism, we'd teach them critical thinking and how to make up their own minds. And you can be absolutely sure that we would not teach them to employ violence, and certainly not suicide attacks. There is no logical pathway leading from atheism to violence. There most certainly are logical pathways leading from religion to violence. Now, of course, not many religious individuals follow those pathways to their logical conclusion, thank goodness. But there is a logical pathway from the Quran, for example, and it only takes a minority to be lured down it. For atheists, there is no such logical pathway. The nearest we get to violence is in the words we use. And there's a big difference. It's a grave misuse of the word extremism to say that atheists are just as extreme as religious extremists. As Victor Stenger, the physicist, has pithily put it in a slogan that might look well on the side of a bus, perhaps, science flies you to the moon, religion flies you into buildings. Nevertheless, atheists such as me have been accused of using the language of extremism. We are strident, shrill, intolerant, aggressive, arrogant. We worship the mind rather than the soul, rather than the heart, rather than the gut, perhaps one might say, to parody Charles Moore. And we are accused of giving offence. Well, I think a great deal of this stems simply from the fact that religion has for so long been feather-bedded. Our whole society, the non-religious as well as religious portions of it, has bought into the fiction that it's somehow bad manners to criticize religion. Douglas Adams put it beautifully in an impromptu speech in Cambridge in 1998. Religion has certain ideas at the heart of it which we call sacred or holy or whatever. What it means is, here is an idea or a notion that you're not allowed to say anything bad about. You're just not. Why not? Because you're not. Why should it be that it's perfectly legitimate to support the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, Republicans or Democrats, this model of economics versus that, Macintosh instead of Windows? But to have an opinion about how the universe began, about who created the universe, no, that's holy. We're used to not challenging religious ideas. But it's very interesting how much of a furore Richard creates when he does it. Everybody gets absolutely frantic about it because you're not allowed to say these things. So when somebody like me says something even mildly critical of religion, it is heard as strident and aggressive, even if it's actually less so than would be perfectly acceptable if it were anything other than religion that was being criticized. There's nothing really new about the so-called new atheists. Nothing new in what we say. The only thing new about us is that we speak up and we call a spade a spade. This is not fundamentalism, it's just honest clarity of expression. We use our brains rather than our gut. New atheism speaks clearly. This used not to happen. Atheists were supposed to know their place, to shut up and respect automatically religious faith. I love a quotation from Johann Hari who said, "I respect you too much to respect your ridiculous ideas." So entrenched is the assumption, implicitly accepted for centuries by religious and non-religious alike, that religion must automatically be respected, that even clarity is heard as offensive. As fundamentalist, indeed. I'm confident that this audience will not be swayed by such pussyfootery. and will vote with their heads instead of with their guts, vote against this motion. Thank you.